Hey, folks, welcome back. It's Friday. We find ourselves on the verge of another weekend. It is July 4th. Happy, and I think it's 249th birthday for America. It's going to be next year, it's going to be the 250, 1776, right, to 2026. So, holy smokes. Where does the
Yeah.
time go? I remember the little bald eagle from 1976. Well, you're
Yeah.
young. Maybe you might. You're a little kid.
No, I remember it because I had a 1776 200-year the shirts that they were selling back in the 70s.
Yeah.
I had the big 1776 shirts
Yeah.
that they were giving out back
was-
then. Back when Canadians were much more supportive of the USA.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah, it was a different world there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the celebrations were big, and they brought out Sam the bald eagle. I think he was Sam. I think that's what they called him. And he was their little logo icon for the period of time. I guess next year on the 250th, they've got the World Cup of Soccer coming to America, so that's going to be kind of fun. We'll see what happens with that.
Both sides of the border, apparently. We got both Seattle and Vancouver.
Yeah, and also Mexico's involved in it. It's a whole North America kind of deal happening there. But yesterday, of course, the big news was big, beautiful bill passing. 1 o'clock today, Pacific, I think 4 Eastern, the president is going to be signing that into law. And there's some quibbling. It's pretty funny. No tax on tips, no overtime, all this sort of thing. And then people are putting that information out. And then you're getting, by the way, I'll just move this. That's my sister over there. Getting everything. They've got company, so they're about to head out and have some fun. But anyway, so signing it into law today, but over on social media, a lot of people are saying, oh, the tax on overtime, and they're putting qualifiers on it, and there are in place. I believe in Trump's heart of hearts that the way the bill, and we all know how this works. You write a bill, you put the thing in, no tax div, simple, do it. It gets across, and somebody else says, well, hold on, how about we do this, do it? And they start shaping and limiting and doing whatever the fuck they do. But by and large, the bill, what it promises and what it delivers are real benefits to the American people. I think the American people are going to find it. Ben Franklin wanted the turkey to be the national bird. Not a bad choice, but the eagle trumps the turkey. I mean, the eagle is so noble, so beautiful, so majestic. You couldn't have picked a better symbol. Now, Sue's not here today to help with the linking of the different things, so I'm going to have to do it. But I put out a personal thing. I'm so proud of this. This is my 6th and 7th great grandfathers, but it starts out like this. Let me see how it looks here. Make this go big. So brick suit, right? The brick suit guy, he stands at the Trump rallies and all the rest. He goes, 4th of July, meme dump, post your favorite memes. Wait, so people can say whatever they want? Yeah. Oh, let's give them guns. This country's going to be lit. Having some fun, founding fathers, John Hancock there. But so I wrote this, Abraham and Jacob Sell, my 7th and 6th great grandfathers, respectively. And their names, I don't know if I can make this bigger. Yeah, a little bit. There's Jacob Sell and Abraham Sell. This is in honor of the Revolutionary soldiers buried in this cemetery. This is over at Christchurch Cemetery in Pennsylvania, Adams County. Gettysburg chapter, Daughters of the American Revolution. So this was done on the bicentennial back in 1976, Blake. But very proud to see that my 7th great grandfather Abraham and my 6th great grandfather Jacob Sell are listed amongst the honorable those soldiers. And Abraham was a private in the Army, but Jacob was actually a captain. Jacob Forney Sell, a captain in the Revolutionary War. So
were they casualties, or were they just were just veterans? That's a veteran.
They were veterans of the war, okay. and I'm happy to say that they both survived it.
For your benefit.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you know what's really interesting about time? You call it time and chance. You have these ancestors of yours that live to be about 25 and they go off to war and get killed, but not before they had a kid or two,
Yeah.
before they get themselves kid. And it's out of those surviving children that you descend, that the children go on to live. And it's really time and chance for all of us there, but for the grace of God. And today's episode, like I've entitled, In God We Trust. So I want to share this great little speech. Okay, it's this one here. Hang on, let me see if I just click it, what'll happen. I'll kill this one here, and I'll double click here and see where it takes me, what it does to us. And with any luck, yeah, we got it. And I'll play this thing. I was so proud of this. Now, I'm not a big Mike Johnson fan. This is the chair of Congress. But let's take a look. Justin, Mike Johnson is dropping truth nukes right now on the floor. See, we are the first nation in the history of the world that acknowledged our rights do not derive from government. They come from God. You see those words up there? It says, in God we trust. We're different. We're distinct. We're exceptional because we acknowledge that right there.
Rights?
So let me just
Is this our right?
pause it there. Make this big for us all. Go back in here and full screen, and let's just listen to him. I was really impressed with this.
Rights. See, the powerful thing about that is we're the first nation in the history of the world that acknowledged that our rights do not derive from government. They come from God himself. You see those words up there, that motto, it says, in God we trust, right above the speaker's rostrum. A previous Congress put that there in the early 60s in the height of the Cold War. There's a little visitor's guide that people get when you do tours late at night. You've probably seen your constituents and visitors and friends get the guide. If you turn, I think it's about to page 21. It explains why that's there. And it says, Congress voted to put that there as a rebuke to the Soviets' worldview at the height of the Cold War. Why? Because communism, socialism, find their root in Marxism. And Marxism begins with the belief that there is no God. It's wrong. And this Congress made us stand those many years ago, and we should do it again. We're different, we're distinct, we're exceptional, because we acknowledge that right there, our motto.
So I just love that, in God we trust. And I was, it was so, I don't know, timely, poignant that yesterday, if you recall, Blake, I kind of went down that same tangent myself, saying that America's uniquely blessed because of how they treat God. Yeah. And because of the acknowledgement of God. Most governments throughout history have been theocracies, not like America. Nothing, you've never seen anything like America other than Israel, Israel of the Old Testament, whose God is the Lord. Blessed is the nation. I quoted this yesterday, the scripture. Blessed the nation whose God is the Lord. I will bless them that bless you. I will curse them that curse you. You go with the Lord. You stand behind the Lord, and if we're obedient and before God, there are blessings that God pronounces. And so I think that because of that position, because America has chosen to honor God in this way, and it's not the God of Islam, it is a Christian God. It's Jesus Christ, God manifested in the flesh, crucified, buried, resurrected, coming again. And because of that belief, and because of that acknowledgement, God honors that. When Trump did the attack on Iran, he said, we love you, God. We love you, God. I felt it was so earnest, so sincere, so honest. I really believe that Trump was sincere in that. That's my gut level read. And I always go with my gut. No matter what's going on in the world, I've always felt that, you can call it your gut, your instinct. I call it, kind of my spirit awakened to God, go do this, follow this, don't do this. This isn't of me. This is of me. And it's never failed me. That's never failed me. I've done many things in my life that I'm not proud of. Many things, sin is ever before me. but that's all me. That's on me. That ain't on God. And
Yeah.
so what we have in America is a unique nation that's been uniquely blessed, and I feel very strongly that if America goes through with what the president is doing here, America, you're going to see a blessing. Trump's calling it the golden age, but you're going to find America blessed as a result of that. I'm just going to shut my non-believing mouth right now. No, it's okay. We welcome, free opinion and stuff. This our good friend Flo State. He's got a good channel himself. Does a lot of live streams, and is a good guy. We love you, Flo. And he's fun personality too. He's a good guy, and he's ladies. He's pretty easy on the eye. He's a handsome guy. Blake, what do you think about this kind of theological element to the American body politic? I know it comes in for a lot of criticism, separation of church and state and all that.
Well, and because we're both believers, we hold the same values of what you just described. But on the more secular point of view, when you're taking a look at the U.S. Bill of Rights, and when they are it's an amazing document because they basically talk about self-evidence, and it's evidence that these are truths that are out there. That the reason why you need to put God, even if you don't believe in God, but if you believe in the rights of man, like a Thomas Paine, read the Rights of Man book. Every American should read that because that book describes exactly what those human values, those rights that need to be enshrined forever. And the whole point of God being put in place is to replace a man, because without God, some man's going to put himself there, and that person is going to dictate what you have for rights. So the whole point is you have rights that can never be legislated against. That is the difference, where all other rights documents are not based on God. They are based on men. Some people describe the old Soviet Union had one of the most beautiful rights, drafted rights for this and that under the Soviet Communist Empire. And people talk about how wonderful that document was. And if you read it, you go, holy smokes, there's a lot of rights here.
Yeah.
But it's not anchored in a constitutional foundation based on God, creation, or if you want to call it Big Bang or whatever, call it whatever you want. But the point is, man didn't create it, but we understand we've been able to survive by having liberty to choose the direction we want to go in life. And we have learned those values that should instill from our Western democracies over time, that we understand the difference between oppression and liberty. And so religious freedom, freedom of speech. I mean, we've had a huge history of how that's impacted people. But if you really want to look at rights documents, because a lot of these people are like, you'll see in Europe, they got a great this, and, Canada's Charter of Rights and Freedoms, it's a piece of garbage because it's an act. It's not based on the foundations of your country or a rights-based document that came from God. And I think that's there's the original Canadian Bill of Rights, so that one you're showing there, which was done during Diefenbaker's era.
Yeah.
That was presented still technically as part of law in Canada. They were trying to mimic the US, but they missed out on the very cornerstone points that you need not a bill, you need a constitution, which is a foundational document. And that's where the Americans, I think, came out different. Why they put God is supreme because no man can be like God, right? So no man or group of men or a tyranny of a minority or a tyranny of a majority can take those rights away from you. So those are your rights. So you've earned those from the blood of your revolutionary forefathers, as you kindly showed your family from that era who fought in it, who fought to bring in those rights for all. But again, I think it's some great books to read. Matter of fact, Thomas Paine's book, The Rights of Man, was rivaling the Bible when it came out. And can you imagine this? It wasn't like there was a bookstore in every corner.
No.
But 10% of the U.S. population at that time had read Thomas Paine's book, Rights of Man. So that really, people were well educated on their rights. 1 in 10. Now, I bet you it's a lot less. I bet you
the
ratio might be 1 out of 100 that understands their rights, or, and that's just because it's just not taught to that level. And then same with Canada. We don't really learn or teach history anymore, because I think the people who are in charge, those post-national state type people who don't want you to learn about your foundations, because if you learn about the foundations of your history, you'll go, oh, well, that wasn't too bad. Why do we want to take all that away from ourselves? The right to own private property, that's a cornerstone document in the US. You guys should be proud of that, because without that, you become a serf on some lord's land. And that's essentially it. But again, getting back to but God, putting God in there. Well, God is supreme. You can call him the universe. He doesn't care. It doesn't bother him. He knows who he is. So it doesn't really matter. But for you who don't believe in God, but at least want to say, okay, believe in the universe. It exists. It's evidentiary. It's around you. Just say the universe provided you those rights, and no person can take those rights away from you.
Beautifully said, because what the Lord giveth, let no man take away, right? This kind of idea. I got another kind of story related more to Canada, showing how, you're saying about history and how it amenable and it could be removed, et cetera, and a lot of the symbolism. Here's a story that's, this is fairly recent. This is July 3rd, 2025. So this is today. Canada's first Prime Minister, John A. Macdonald, Sir John A. Macdonald, too controversial for commemoration, a federal board has ruled. Minutes from the meeting suggest members agreed Macdonald is now, quote, a polarizing and controversial figure in Canadian history with complex legacies. So here in Canada, he's too controversial to even discuss or commemorate in any meaningful manner. Meanwhile, in America, you've got George Washington, the first president, who is held up as and honored and as the founding father of the United States. Is so important in the American War of Independence, General George Washington. I cannot tell a lie. That little nose picker, he grows up and he becomes this great leader for American independence, right? George Washington, he finds himself on Mount Rushmore, you wonder why. But here in Canada, I think John A. was in a box for about 4 years. There was a statue outside Ottawa. It was a founding prime minister, our first prime minister, and they put a box around it so as not to offend certain parties, the usual suspects, those parties. Morality is pragmatic. It's not new and not an invention of Christianity or Judaism. No, we concede that point. We know that the law is written on your hearts. The law is just a codified means of, if you're wondering how you're doing objectively, you can compare yourself with it. But what I love about that is you've got the rich young ruler who comes before the Lord and says, what must I do to inherit eternal life? And Jesus turns to him and says, obey the law and the prophets. Well, I've done that since I was a child. I know though I've kept them all. What lack I yet? So you kept them all. Well, there's your first error, because nobody's without sin. The law and the prophets is kind of a very rough list of God's own character, right? It doesn't wish ill. It doesn't covet. It doesn't steal. It doesn't idolatrize. No, thou shalt have no other gods before you. Thou shalt love the Lord thy God. Hear, O Israel, the Lord thy God is one God, etc., etc. So Christ says, okay, rich young ruler, sell everything you have and follow me. And then the rich young ruler goes away very sorrowful, for he had many possessions. So God will hit you. Christ will hit you right where you live, whatever it may be. And that is the law. That is the morality. That is a higher standard. It's a life and death principle. And in fact, to be born again doesn't operate on a basis of good and bad. This is good, this is bad. Anybody can do that. But true Christianity is spiritual. God is a spirit. They that worship him must worship in spirit and truth. And to do that, you must be born again. Your spirit's ignited. You connect with God through spirit. You know God through the spirit. And it transcends. Two trees in the garden. One, the knowledge of good and evil. This is right. This is wrong. This is good. This is bad. And the other is the tree of life, the spiritual tree of life that you get renewed in your spirit, born again. You reconnect with God. Your spirit is awakened and you know God through this spiritual connection. That's why you have to be born again. So yeah, morality is not unique to anything, but spiritual rebirth is unique to Christianity. It's through Christ and Christ alone. Thomas Paine's book, Common Sense, helped to spark the American Revolution. He was a very important person in history. Yeah, absolutely. So Paine was one of the intellectuals, the Enlightenment thinker that was very influential in the American Revolution, as were some of the French writers at the time. I forget now, but it's been a while since I
studied. The Libertines?
Well, yeah, I mean,
yeah.
And the French Revolution, of course, France helped America because of its enmity with the United Kingdom at that time, the British Crown. So, what was it?
And their own revolution against monarchy.
Yeah, Lafayette. I worship rock and roll, Governor. Any old rocker, you. But so this is part of the great blessing. I really believe that God has blessed America uniquely. It's under attack right now. It's being eroded from within. But this is why this miracle of Donald Trump is really something to see. And keep in mind, don't play or worry about the morality issue. Yeah, but he's a fornicator, he's an adulterer, he's flawed, or he's this or that. The whole story, just read the Bible. All I can tell you is read the Bible. You want to know about flawed leadership. King David, probably the greatest of all the Israeli kings. You're right. Everybody talks about King David, the little boy with the stone. Netflix Prime has got the House of David miniseries.
Kills a guy at the front of the line just to get his girl.
So there's old I forget his name, Uzziah or whatever, and so he's got his wife Bathsheba. And so David's coveting the guy's wife, which is already, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. So he's breaking a commandment right there. And then he says, well, how do I get the babe? I know. I'll ship her husband off to war, and I'll tell my people to make sure you send this guy to the front line so he's guaranteed of getting chewed out in the
first guy up the ladder.
And then I'll take the wife. And of course, everything followed suit. But then they held to pay. David sowed the wind. He reaped the whirlwind. You're not without consequences. Donald Trump is not without consequences in his life for sin. None of us are. Be not deceived. God is not mocked, for whatsoever a man sows, that also shall he reap. God gave our senses, experience, ability to reason, ignoring all those in favor of a story given to you by a man. Seems like something God wouldn't actually be pleased with. Well, you're mistaken you do err not knowing the scriptures nor the power of God there, Powdered Dusty. Your senses, experience, and ability are wrapped up in the realm because man is a tripartite constitution of spirit, soul, and body. God took of the dust of the earth, breathed into the dust, and man became a living soul. The enmity and the lack of cohesion between spirit, which is mindful of the things of God, and dust, which is mindful of the things of the earth. All that is of the world, the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eye, and the pride of life, are not of the spirit, are not of God, but are of the flesh, are of the world. So you've got your senses, you've got your experiences, but that comes either from the flesh or the soul, the intermarry of the soul. And the lesson for the Christian, what God desires, is that your soul willingly, mind, will, intellect, those components that comprise the soul, yield themselves voluntarily to God's Spirit so that they walk in life. If you live in the Spirit, you should also walk in the Spirit and allow the grace of God to perfect salvation in you, deliverance from the world, from your own sin, from your own sinful nature. And so it's not through sensorial experience. It's not through reason. It's through divine inspiration. Inspiration to mean breathe. That's where we get inspire, perspire. That etymology of that leads to spirit, is spiritos, right? To breathe, the spirit. So that's how God chooses the Christian to walk. Entirely different mode of operation than what you're alluding to there in the comment below. Entirely different. And never the twain shall meet. Except through the mediator of the soul. And what is death? It's the separation of the soul with the spirit and the body. The flesh dies, no longer conjoining the spirit, and then the soul is loosed in that. Then we stand and we go before God, and we have a little chat. We have a little chat about what went down. Okay, lots of stories we're following. A big story right now. Let's see if I got it. Yeah, okay, here it is. I'm going to click on this. Canadian Bill of Rights we did. I want to tell you one thing before we move on, just about that Bill of Rights. 1960, when that was written, my dad was an RCMP officer, and he was given that. You know, it was a big deal, and they had a thing. My dad ended up being a staff sergeant for the RCMP, which is Canada's version of the FBI. Federal Police Agency. My dad was given one of those, and he told me as soon as I was old enough to kind of understand what it was about, because it was in the hallway growing up, Blake. We had that Bill of Rights framed, and he goes, "This, son, is not worth the paper it's written on. It's absolutely meaningless." He was an RCMP officer. He pulled over. He had the power to suspend civil rights. You don't want to deal with cops, because cops come in and they have the right to suspend your civil rights. You don't have any rights at this moment. At this moment, I need you to turn around and get, and get locked up.
Actually, I just want to point something about the Bill of Rights, because the Bill of Rights has, it's the only document that has some mention of private property rights in Canada. The Canadian Constitution Act of 1982 does not. It was stripped right out of there, which is an interesting document, because again, it is an act. It is not a true constitution, right? So we want to get to, good point.
Okay, so that treats Rach, what you're saying, it treats the flesh as bad or undesirable, but God created it for us specifically and said it was good. The trouble is, what you're ignoring there is that sin worked out death. So God says the woman took not an apple, but the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil. And God said, in the day that you take that knowledge of good and evil, in that day you shall die. And immediately death occurred to Eve and Adam. But they lived on for many years after that. How did they die in that day? They died the very minute they did that. The very second, the very instance they partook of that, they died in their spirit. So God goes walking, a metaphor. God goes walking in the garden. Adam, where are you? Where are you? God knows all things. He knows where he is. He goes, here we are. We're over here. Oh, yeah. What are you doing? Well, we knew you. We kind of a woman, and then we apple, and we sinned, and we knew. And so we hid ourselves because we're naked. Who told you we're naked? Who told you that? Well, we had the woman, and then that's the first cop out in history.
Yeah, the first throw under the bus. Throw my wife under the bus.
Adam, the first thing in history, man-woman relationship. She did it. She gave it to me. So the whole thing is that your flesh is no longer without sin, without blemish. The Bible says to be carnally minded, to be fleshly minded is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace. So the spirit brings life, the flesh brings death. Jesus Christ, when he's tempted by Satan, tempted him with all the kingdoms. Satan goes, bow down before me, the pride of life, and I'll exalt you under the Most High. You'll be all nations. I'll give you all the world to bow down at your feet to worship you. And that's the pride of life. You don't need God. Just fall down, worship me, and I'll give you all that. Surely God has not said, surely God has said that if you dash your foot against any stone, he'll rise you up. And he goes, so why don't you turn these stones into bread, lest you go hungry? The lust of the flesh, he's hungry. So lust of the flesh, lust of the eye. Satan says, if you fall down and worship me, I'm going to give you all these riches. All this is going to be yours. And that's the pride of so lust of the eye, lust of the flesh, the pride of life. Those three sins were tempted before Christ. Two of them are in the soul realm, soul sins, because of pride of life. lust of the eye, covetousness, wealth, accumulation, prosperity without God is sin. And then the other one is the lust of the flesh, just simply get the bread, turn it into bread.
I think a lot of people don't understand the God's nature. It's not, some people picture this angry Zeus-like God who's dictating to people. It's not. It's for our own protection that he keeps his distance, because he's like the sun. Essentially, if you go to the sun right now and try and fly to it, you will burn up and disappear. So his very nature destroys sin. So it's not even, he's angry and going to do something to you to destroy you. That's why they create a veil to shield him from you, to protect you from being fried to nothingness, because that's essentially, your flesh would just disappear because it's so full of sin. It's like the sun. It's so hot. It's against sin. It will burn it up for good. So that's why we have a veil. When they talk about the veil, he provides a shield protecting us from that sin. And that sin is, picture it being, it's a genetic disease now. It's passed down through you're born with it. There is no escaping it, because it happened, as you said, from Adam and Eve onwards. They had children. It is in the DNA. And that's the part. Now it's mastering it is, through Jesus Christ is the way to do it.
Yeah, you're so right. And also now I can go over it because, when you're talking and I'm fresh up. So the three temptations are cast yourself down from the temple is what Satan said. Because isn't it written that the angels have given charge over thee and they will lift you up? And so that sin is the pride of life. I'm God. I got all the power. I can be lifted up. The lust of the flesh is, if you're hungry, he's fasting 40 days. He's tempted in the wilderness. Turn the stones into bread. That's the lust of the flesh. The angels carrying him up is the pride of life. And the lust of the eye is, bow down before me. I'll give you all the kingdoms of the world. He shows them all the kingdoms, said this is going to be yours. So those are the three sins. God is not powerful enough to figure out how to be around us. Come on. No, I think you misunderstand what Blake was saying by what he's saying. Through the purification of God through your spirit that you can draw, but no flesh shall glory in God's sight. And you read the stories in the Old Testament that God's glory fills the temple so that all the priests, there's no room for anybody in there as the glory of God fills the temple. And so the visions of God are great. But no, so God knows how to be around us. God walked amongst us. We beheld his glory as the first begotten of the Almighty, that Jesus Christ, God, the Word became flesh and dwelt amongst us. So there is that. But it's God in his pure holiness, the brightness and the holiness of God. And when you see that John of Patmos gets a dose of it, where he falls down, he's paralyzed. And then the angel says, fear not, hang on, and talks to John. And I got to be full disclosure, kids. I haven't read my New Testament and I want to say 20 years. So I'm just working now through the Bible again, cover to cover. I'm in Job now, and talk about a revelation. Job's a lesson in humility for all of us. Job was an amazing guy, far more a better person than I could ever hope to be. But he gets a tongue lashing from the boss. But having said that, I'm looking forward to refreshing my New Testament knowledge as I read that book. I'm looking forward to it, obviously. So anyway, no, God is powerful enough. God is all powerful. And he did figure out how to be around us, right? But the idea is that without shedding of blood is no remission of sin, that we're a fallen race, that we're a sinful species, and therefore we need the mediator between us and God, for without shedding of blood is no remission of sin. That's why in the Old Testament, the Jews did continual sacrificing. The amount of blood that was shed in the temple of God is horrific, is absolutely horrific. That they're during these sacrifices, thousands of bullocks, never mind the bullocks, rams, lambs, and these things are being presented before God as an acknowledgement of our sin. Our sin is absolutely ever before us. The concepts of original sin and rejection of the flesh in this world are literally anti-human. They run counter to loving thy neighbor. Not at all. Not at all. In fact, you're incapable of loving your neighbor as long as you have an undisciplined, fleshly, sinful nature, because your fleshly, sinful nature will seek after the things that concern you, not the things that concern God. And obedience is born of the Spirit, not born of the flesh. We almost have the patience of Job when dealing with liberals, Rachel. I'm not a liberal. No, I know Dusty isn't. He's not. I know he's not. But what I'm trying to say, there's nothing anti-human about it. It's common sense acknowledgement of how fallen we are, and all the evidence you need to know about fallen man and I use man in the universal sense, about our fallen nature, our fallen sin, is look around you. You look no further than me. I'm a trans woman of color. What the hell? That's my sin, man. That's my error. It's manifest. My sin is ever before me. And so, and even if that's not your sin, it can be pride. It can be anything. You know, I've kept all the laws. I'm perfect. What do I need to do? Even though this young rich ruler that I was talking about, even though he had kept the law all his life and had been a very good guy and trying to do the best he could, Jesus was still able to take him to a place where his flesh, where his soul couldn't go. Sell everything. Lust of the flesh, lust of the eye, pride of life. His was the pride of the lust of the eye. The possessions was the lust of the eye. It's easier for a camel to go through the eye of the needle than a rich man to get into heaven, right? So anyway, it's not, I don't see it as anti-human or anything. It's just clearly a recognition of God's up there. We're down here. Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. We can't be fallen. We're either exactly as we're supposed to be or God messed up. God didn't mess up. We are fallen. You know, I leave it to you to reconcile that. Work out your own salvation with fear and trembling, Dusty. That's what the one I leave for you. Work that out yourself. You know in yourself that you're fallen. You know in yourself. That's how we start. This is why Christianity is not the cool religion of, it is. Christianity starts with you on your knees going, I'm wrong, you're right. It's a humility thing. I'm wrong, you're right. Well, that's how you start. That's step one. You know, it's like you talk about the 12-step programs, of Bill W. Hello, I'm Bill W. I'm an alcoholic. That whole idea is that the first thing you do is you confess your sin. I'm a sinner. I know I'm wrong before God. I don't need you to tell me. I don't need Blake. I don't need a Bible to tell me. I don't need anybody to tell me. I know in myself, I'm honest enough within myself to know that I have that sin. That's where it starts. Christianity starts off with gaslighting. Wrong. I want to do the Trump meme. Wrong. If Ford builds an exploding car, Ford is responsible, and nobody would say these cars keep blowing themselves up. No, what God did was said, see, I set before you this day life and death and good and evil. Choose the path. You pick the path. But I'm going to tell you, without God, I know the path you're going to pick. I'm getting laid. I'm going to get a little high tonight.
Well, I think maybe in the other concept that I think Dusty might be making a point on is characters like Job, who had a flawless personality, but he went through living hell, right? And it was a living hell, but it was a test of his spirit to see how he would stand. It was a challenge between good and evil, God good, Satan evil. I bet you I can break this guy. The only reason why he won't change is because you got a hedge around him. You're protecting him. Well, I'll show you my creation. My guy here is going to stand the test of time. He's going to wallow. He's going to be upset. He's doesn't know what, everyone around him is blaming him. Well, you must have done something wrong. but yeah, there's people that have the character of seemingly sinless, but they're not. Because you don't know somebody's soul to that depth. You don't know what they're going through, but they are born with it. All have fallen, all have sinned, all have fallen short of the glory of God. Paul's words. But essentially Job would be a great example of, this guy seems to have this natural ability that God would have created in us to have that ability to be as if we were walking sinless. He was the closest thing we had to a sinless person who was still sinful. So,
okay, I've got an answer for you right away. An answer comes to my mind right away. You got anything for him on this, Blake? Tell me again how God loved Job.
Wow. Well, because he was pure in heart. I think that's it. He had a heart after God, very similar to David, except he was very virtuous. He was cared about everybody around him. He loved everything. He was not a selfish person at all. He was selfless. He had all the characteristics of what God wanted in a person. But the biggest one at all is being able to have the strength to withstand the chaos of evil, right? And I think that's where, God knew he would be the guy to stand up against all that Satan could throw at him.
It's interesting, Dusty, tell me again. First of all, how God loved Job is he created him. Job is created in the image of God. Okay, so Job had the ability to worship God. He eschewed evil. He clung to that which was good. He eschewed evil, right? And what's interesting about God? You want to talk about humanity. This is the great lesson of Job. The great lesson of Job is its paradoxical nature, that Job suffers so much, and it says, yet he did not sin and all this. But at the end of the day, when God finally comes in, remember his companions come up and sit with him, and they're respectful of him. They don't say anything to the guy for a week. They're just sitting in silence, marveling at this guy. He's lost his family, his property, his everything he's got has been taken away, and it's taken away rapidly. And as the news of one disaster is happening, a messenger comes in. I'm the last one, but I'm here to give you the message. We're all dead, but we're here to go. Oh, gee, what could anything else go wrong? Oh, I'm still standing, Dr. Frankenstein. So Frankenstein. But, so all of this testing, it's God that draws the attention of Satan to him. So Satan goes, where does the sons of God present themselves before God? And so as they present themselves, hey, Satan, where you been? Oh, I've been going to and fro and up and down in the earth. Oh, yeah. God, and then God goes, hey, have you considered my servant Job? God, what are you doing? Why are you alerting this malevolent force to your guy? Now, what? Job? Oh, yeah. Well, him. The only reason is Blake said, because you're blessing him doing all this good stuff. Well, okay, I'm allowing you to take it all away from him. You can take everything away and see how he stands up. It's a really remarkable thing. But keep in mind, Dusty, God's thoughts are not our thoughts. His ways are not our ways. His righteousness and holiness is so far above us. I can't even say that, but much of the confusion around God and the problem that people have around it is they fail to see, acknowledge, and understand his holiness. Go ahead, Blake.
Well, I think Job, again, what you're reading in the Bible are, if you're picturing Job by himself, Job is not by himself through all this. He is an example for thousands of generations. So his withstanding the storm was for you as well, right? For all of us to be able to see God can make you strong. And if he trusts you enough that you'll go through a living hell, and at the end, you're redeemed. It's a redemption story. It's not just for Job. Job's experience was for everybody, because all of us go through shit every freaking day. And even those of us who are the most believers in Jesus are going, God, why am I going through this again? Like, why am I going through this craziness, or what's going on? Why did you put a crazy, insane government to overcharge me that hates everything about me?
Yeah.
He's teaching you how to, through Job, on how to withstand that, because in the end, you live for 70, or you live for 100 years. You're somewhere in there. There's your average.
Yeah.
And you're going to die. And he's saying, don't put all your treasure into living in the moment for yourself and all your feelings. And, you may be a good person. There's lots of people I walk around and say, yeah, they're great people. And the world hits them. I'm watching in BC a 10-year-old. She just turned 10. She was 9. She's 10 years old now. She desperately needs medication to live. She has a very rare disease. People are probably going, her parents are going, why, God? Why are you allowing this to happen to this girl? And it's not just happening to that girl. It's happening to so many people. That's the nature of sin. But in the end, it's how you address it in the end. And that's what God shows you. You stand with him. He sends his son redeems you. He threw everything. He allowed Satan to throw everything at Jesus.
So again, because we know God is holy and without sin and perfect in all his ways, and we worship God. So out of that attitude, I can tell you right now that God did not sin. If he sinned at all, he would not be God. It's antithetical. It's the very definition of not God is what you've provided there. That ain't God. So once you understand God's holiness, then a lot of the confusion in your soul, in your mind, which is part of your soul component of you as an individual, as you as a created being, once you understand that, once you get the revelation of God's holiness, then the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Then you're on your way to learning. You're on your way to learning at that point, because you recognize the holiness and you recognize that you're anything but.
And a big part of that gift is free will too. That's the point. Yeah. Otherwise, we'd just be a beehive, right, of people just running around doing what we do, pre-programmed with no decision-making processes, reasoning, all these things that Dusty mentioned there, through all the comments and all that. But you're going to get to a free will, or were we destined? And so it's kind of an in-between. I think in a lot of this is all a pre-written story. There's an alpha and omega, there's a beginning, there's an end, and then it renews and becomes a brand new. Everything eventually gets cleaned up.
Dusty, one of the realities, or another story that comes to mind, is you're talking about the workplace. He's God's anathema, or Job's anathema example. Imagine teach your daughter behave like Job if she were, say, an abusive marriage or hostile workplace. The point is God will deliver, right? Jehovah delivers. The Lord God delivers. Christ delivers from evil. Lord, we pray. Right? Our Father, which art in heaven, deliver us from evil. Give us this day our daily bread. Deliver us from evil. The trick is, and this is where it's so difficult in our flesh, while we look at things that are not seen, the world, the natural man looks at things that are seen around him, the material world. But we don't look at the world. We're encouraged, we're trained, and if we're strong in spirit, to look away from the world, but look to our salvation. Look towards God. It's always this case. Peter walking on the water. The storm is about, the boat's tossed around, and Jesus comes to them walking on the water. And Peter goes, "It's the Lord. I got to go to him." And he's held up by his faith until he gets his eye off the Lord, and he looks at the waves and goes, "Holy smokes, I'm walking on the water here. This can't be. This ain't happening." And at that point, he starts to sink because he takes his eyes off God. Our salvation is to God. Or in the Bible, where, I can't remember which battle it was. Blake may be able to remember. But it may be Joshua. But they see all the armies camped about them, and then they pray that their eyes would be open, and they look up, and there's fiery chariots on the hill, and said, "There be more with us than with them." Once you get your eyes open to the Spirit, you understand that God is with you, and if God be for you, who can be against you? Thank you for entertaining my sacrilegious questions. I have to go, but I will be listening. Well, thank you, Dusty. It's fun. I enjoy engaging. Come now, let us reason together. I do enjoy the interaction. I know Blake does as well. And, I think it's good to be reminded of these things, right? But, and we don't have all the answers. We're trying to work out our own salvation, this kid over here and me. All right,
there is just one other point about the imagine teaching your daughter to behave like Job. Well, there's another good example in the Bible about that. It's not you almost have to think, as people are trying to describe nowadays in political terms, 4D chess, but spiritually. You have to go 4 deep when you're going into understanding. So when you're looking at others people's sin against people, I mean, people are sinning against people all the time. So the abuse, you talk about the daughter, to behave like Job if she were in, say, an abusive marriage. Yeah, her faith should not change. She should be stronger. And in essence, you pray for your enemies. That's you got to love your enemies too. You don't have to tolerate the abuse. You can walk away from it. You could leave. You could dust off your shoes and leave if violence is happening. But you're supposed to still pray for that soul that is so mixed with violence in their soul to go away. But you picture like Noah, like he had to go and tell the people of Nineveh, I believe it was, were going to be annihilated. And obey, like he was expecting fireworks and God to come and annihilate the city because they were sinful. But what did they do in the end? Those were his enemies. They repented. And he's like, well, what the hell? I was expecting fireworks and destruction, not the whole city repenting and coming to God, right? It was like an amazing story. But there's an example of, yeah, I hate those guys. I want them gone. Yeah, let's go. Let's go punch them up and destroy them because they're doing sin against me and others, and it's against me. It's against my daughter. It's against whatever. He went there and said, you guys are going to be destroyed by God if you don't change your ways. And he was expecting they would be destroyed. And essentially, they repented. They changed their ways. And,
lo and behold.
Yeah. So what did Jonah do? He got pissed. He ended up in the belly of the whale because he couldn't handle that. Essentially, he was becoming like God. He thought, well, wait a minute. I want to punish these guys.
Yeah. That happens in the Bible a fair bit. I mean, Moses failed to get into the promised land because he misrepresented God to the people. He struck the rock twice. God said, I never told you to do that. Now you're making the people look like I'm really pissed at him to the extent you're pissed at him. I ain't pissed at him that much. I'm pissed at him, but not like you're pissed at him.
There's nothing harder to try and forgive somebody who's trying to do violence or harm against you. That is probably the toughest one because you're like, F you. Let's go toe to toe. It's just like we do that politically, right? You libtards, you liberal heroes, and all that kind of stuff. But you know what? I don't think there's hate, right? There's a side where you become sinful, where you hate people. Yeah, and you may hate an idea, but not the person. Hate the sin, love the person.
Yeah, I agree with that, Blake. And again, once you're aware of your own fallibility, you can behold the beam in your own eye before you stoop to pick the mote out in your brother's eye.
Exactly.
And then also, I mean, sometimes you luck out, like the story of Nabal in the Bible. Nabal's a surly, rotten husband type, and he's married to Abigail, and King David's floating around in town, and God kindly kills Nabal at the dinner. Nabal has a heart attack or he strokes out. And then now Abigail's free, and King David ends up marrying Abigail. You're no longer, you don't have to worry about the mean husband anymore. That's been taken care of. But anyway, so many great stories going on to cover. Okay, this is kind of another one that we'll cover right now. Boom. This is U.S. foreign aid. This is kind of an interesting story, and I'll run the tape. This is from our friend Libs of TikTok. OMG. Oh my God. State Department spokeswoman Tammy Bruce says 90% of foreign aid never actually made it to its intended destination. The amount of fraud is mind-boggling. This is why Democrats fought Dodge so hard. We need more arrests. Let's play her, make her big, and we'll see how she gets on.
We are not ending foreign aid. We are making it more nimble. We are operating at the speed of relevancy to making sure that the millions and billions of dollars that we spend on aid get to where it is meant to go. There is nothing to be proud of when 90%, according to Samantha Powers, is not even making it to the people to whom it was promised. These are promises. Donald Trump makes promises and he keeps them. Promises made, promises kept. We will be doing that also now with foreign aid, with the new structure of how this will be working. We are, of course, it is in our DNA. We exist in large part because of the nature of what America stands for as a beacon of hope for the future for the world. We've died on that principle. We live on that principle, and we are giving foreign aid on that principle, but it will be functional, it will be auditable, we will know where it's going, and we will see results.
Yeah, and now up here in Canada, Blake, do you know that a lot of times, like when we're going, there's no oversight of the money that we're giving, for example, to the Ukraine? It just
None.
goes. And
Yeah,
there is
black hole.
Yeah, it's a black hole. There is no oversight to it. So we don't really know what happens to the money or if it does any rebounding or what's going on. There's even a Zelensky quote, which I just threw that one up because talking about foreign aid and how governments are not necessarily the best at expediting help to foreign nations because, again, there's so much corruption that a lot of that money never makes it to where it should go to do the best. And even in something, I heard something about Live Aid. I don't know if this is accurate or if it's anecdotal. Somebody correct me in the peanut gallery. I know you kids know a lot out there. But that a large percentage of the money that was designated for the African relief back in 86 for Live Aid actually never made it there to help out the people that needed it most. So
sadly, there's massive bureaucracies that suck most of that money up into their own pockets for, quote unquote, management and administrative aspects of those monies. But yeah, and when it's government, it's way worse. But yeah, there's even some private charities that have terrible conversion rates of what you donate to them to what actually gets to the ground, to the people who need it. And I always wonder, by now there must be a billion wells in Africa. They get, there's that one specific charity for a long time where they're just trying to get them fresh water. And I remember reading, there's places you can go that tell you what percentage of the money actually gets eaten by management, right? And of those organizations. And some of them are said 70-80%. Government's even worse. It's like a black hole. But Canada may be one of the worst right now because we essentially have a kleptocracy. We have a crooked, thievery political elite class that are taking billions of dollars, funneling it through their system, and it disappears, and there's no accountability at all. It's just, that's why there's, what normally one incident would cause a government to fall because, it's a major scandal. Scandals just, there isn't one. Every time that there's a scandal every day and would be enough to make a government fall. And it just, these monies
happens. Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's so corrupt up here. It seems like though there's no will within the population. Maybe the population is so disenfranchised or disillusioned or, like everybody's going, well, what are you going to do? You can't fight City Hall. It's that kind of throw up your hands and go, well, what are you going to do?
Well, it's almost like the intentional setting of this polarization so that they can hide all that. Because it's, your team is being accused of stealing. You should be ashamed of yourself. That team is told, no, you guys are the problem. You guys. And so you get everyone fighting with each other. Meanwhile, the bandits are just keep draining, like that video you played from, I think it was from the Ruddles, where these guys, the interview and all that stuff's walking out the back door. Nothing to see here, folks. Everything's fine.
It's not on. We're putting a stop to it. These are good boys. Yeah.
But nobody stands up. And it used to be, I would love to stand shoulder to shoulder with my progressive left-wing people to have the same values of honor. They don't have it. And even on the conservative side, they'll go and they'll circle the wagons to protect because they're being driven by the elite uniparty class to protect those that are stealing. And they are stealing. That's what it is. It's called a kleptocracy. When you get to the point where your society no longer holds those people accountable, you are now losing control of it. You basically got a mob controlling it. And I mean racketeering kind of mobs. It's a scam. Any other time in history, these people would have been arrested. But for the last 20 years and progressively getting worse, it's like they don't care. They just don't care. And that's sad. I don't know if that's apathy or there's so much of it, they're desensitized. That could be a big part of it.
I hate to interrupt because we're at 12:59, so we got kind of a minute to go. I want to bring this up. This is something you and I were talking about before the show started, and I just want to draw our viewers' attention to this great monument here. children of a common mother. What am I looking at here, Blake?
You are looking at the Peace Arch on the border of Washington and British Columbia, right off I-5. It was, I believe that was opened with JFK, and I've got the history here. I'm just kind of looking it up, but yeah, so there's an inscription on it. It's right on the border on both sides for Canada and the U.S., but basically says the American side of the arch is inscribed with the words "Children of a Common Mother," which you see there. The Canadian side, if you were to go around on the other side, see brethren dwelling together in unity. And then within the portal, so if you're going to go stand inside of the arch, on the west side are the words 1814, open 100 years since 1940. So open border without, guards standing there. We used to have borderless, no guards to go through. And on the east side, may these gates never be closed.
Yeah, beautiful. So what did you want to bring to the kids' attention about this? How does this reflect to the current status with Canada vis-a-vis the United States?
Well, I think with all the hyperbole that we see in the media, trying to drum up the separation between Canada and the U.S. over a trade spat, I mean, some of the people are taking it to the extreme. And I think they need to just remind themselves, we still have the longest unprotected border in the world, two friendly nations that, even though we were controlled by England at one time, 100%, and but even after the Revolutionary War, after the War of 1812, we got along. That was a thing, and not just that, we became great friends, great neighbors, trading partners. We gained common mother means our families, our immigrants, our settlers, the colonists, etc. over history, passed back and forth. First Nations people, indigenous peoples of North America had been crossing before there was even a border. So we're all, of this sort of big friendly family of North America. And so we have this peace arch. Never should it ever be closed. And sadly, there's people beating the drums of war, not violence war, but essentially let's separate ourselves.
Division.
Yeah, division. We need to ignore those people. Independence Day affected Canada, and in a positive way. We wouldn't have a lot of the freedoms and rights to do what we want to do today if the Americans didn't have their War of Independence and became believers in the idea that you can have a dream to be anything you want to be as an individual. Your rights would never be ruled against by a government. And Canada has reaped those benefits because we have acted like we had those rights, even though our government may not be too happy with it. But the fact is, America has kept us free, because to have universal health care and all these things we claim to have, we only have it because without the U.S. and the U didn't exist, we would have been invaded and taken over by a hostile invading country a long time ago that may have been not so benevolent.
Yeah, amen to that, Blake. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've reached the 103 mark, a little over time, well worth it on July 4th. Happy 249th birthday, United States of America, the greatest nation on the planet, bar none. I can say that very comfortably sitting here in Canada. I love the U.S. Love you, Blake. Thank you for being here. Dusty, thanks for your question. Loki, we love you. We'll see you later today. There is a Patreon. It's non-political that I do have. And I always encourage people to throw money at me, because I like money. Sing something for us, Beatles. We need money first. All right, everybody. Happy July 4th. And thank you, everybody, for being here. Give us a thumbs up on the program and subscribe if you enjoyed the ride today. Thank you so much. Bye for now.